evening session, and that is the Science Slam, Saving the Earth with Science. What could be possible if everyone would really listen to the scientists? And there are good books and good catastrophe movies, disaster movies, where that is described and shown. Your two female speakers are Franka and Elena. And she's a geological scientist, and Franka is a best-selling author and journalist. And together with a few other people, they wrote a book. And please, a warm welcome for those, and it's really courageous to be here. So there's some, I can't really see, but I let Franka begin by. You can see how good our coordination is here. Yes. So the lighting has dimmed. I like that a lot better. Very nice. There's the presentation too. And to the other titles and journalist, I'm really also neuroscientist. So social neurosciences in particular. So I think about and I research about what happens if two brains meet, like cognition and understanding and compassion. So why is there research in that? We are neuroscientists and we want to understand people, we want to understand the brain, and what is the human being if not a very social being? So I really have to see here. I think that's the wrong presentation. Oh, okay. Yeah. Really great coordination. I say that again. Okay. So that's like somebody called that's presentation karaoke. Yes, something like that. Things I wanted to do. All right, so we are a social being. And the first question is really, is it really a social being? So we have a lot of social challenges, and we really fail in the same way. Again and again, the state of the planet cannot be ignored any longer, and the future is really limited for the youth, and really the majority really wants to live in the past. In other words, we are really done. So it's no wonder that in regular intervals we really ask ourselves, is the human being is really good, or is really his own wolf, or life wouldn't be easier if we didn't really try to be social. So this is a politician of the German Liberal Party, known for some antisocial politics, really. So what does science say? Science says it's complicated. Really, that's what they always say. And it's really true. The whole world is complicated. There are billions of people who have to live with each other. Even the coordination with only 11 people is quite hard. So it reads raw pots, but it should really say stop wars. So they all turned the wrong way. Really think there's a kind of a cockpit in our brain, but of course in the brain itself it's dark. There are really only neurons, and what they really can do is fire or not fire. It's on or off, 1 or 0. In theory, it means that our brain really understands intuitive language much better than us, but it can be confused very easily. Who can see that something is wrong with this picture? Yeah, but did you really think that it looked like this? The whole thing I can understand. Don't confuse me with details. The next example everybody probably knows. Really, who sees white and gold? Who sees black and blue? Who is surprised that I even asked? Even a few. Okay. So I really have bad news for some of you. the Clyde is black and blue, and I really am among those people who see it wrong, and nobody can confuse me of the opposite. The trick is that our brain really, with backlit, then it removes blue hues, and it's really good if we really come home when we're drunk, because we don't think that someone has painted the city, but we understand that it's just an illusion. But the threshold where we can see it as an illusion is different for different people. So it's really a good scientific explanation that we could really follow, or we could just freak out completely. So we really know now that Justin Bieber sees blue and black, and Kim Kardashian and Justin are not. So Taylor Swift is confused and scared, and in capital letters. So we don't have a lot of potential for misunderstanding. We are really excited when that happens, and we still have to get along together somehow. How can that work? So we concentrate on these big picture things. We concentrate on small decisions like, do you want to share what you have? That's how we talk about sharing. We have something and then we have less food or money. And the most important example is a dictator game. Someone gets 10 euros. Do you want to give something, transfer something to a foreign person, to a stranger? There's really no reason to do that, but people do that. It's not really fair. Usually €3 on average, but hardly anyone gives nothing. And the Homo economicus would predict something else. And if you look into the brain, you can see that we are happy when we can share. And it's really cool because everything that is rewarding, we do that again and again. Like we never procrastinate with chocolate bars. There are good reasons for us to share, and one is the emotional, and we really share the feelings with other people and we don't like them being said. And there's the cognitive reason. We understand thoughts of other people. And also their thoughts about us, and we don't want to make a bad impression. So our self-image, it really is better for our self-image if we really behave well, and our self-image is not always accurate, but altogether we really want to be social for compassion, understanding, image and self-image. And that really sounds really nice. And if everything is so nice, then we don't really need things like taxes or anything. Just we rely on our own social abilities. And if that seems suspect to you, you're not alone. And scientists really shook up the dictator game, and it's not really robust. And if this unfair decision, we let a computer do that, we found alternatives. And then if we really have the opportunity to give money, to take money away, then we give less, and we only give because other people look at us, then we stop if they stop looking, and we don't really need tricks to keep us from sharing, and we just have to ask again and again, do you want to share? And at some point, all generosity reaches its end, and generosity works very well in families or with care packages or for disasters. Those are really the situations where we give a lot, but we can't base our everyday life on that. So what else to do? Let's say back to the roots. If science cannot advance, then we look at small children, hoping that they are similar to our ancestors, and not our tax counselor. Do little children like to share their cookie? Well, not really. So that doesn't mean that they don't care about other kids, and they really like the situation where both have a cookie. and they are really to work together for that. They really, developed a system for that. And how that socially cognitive that is, you can see that if chimpanzees really have to pull together on a literal string, and chimpanzees understand what happens here, and they both pull the string and get the fruits, and the higher level chimpanzee gets everything, and the other is of course a problem. And that works one time only, but little children understand that both have to profit from the cooperation, and that allows them to keep working together for a longer time. And that's a wonderful thing, because cooperation creates additional value. And especially for a species that evolutionary alone, they really don't have much to show for. And together we hunt mammoths, otherwise we would have only carrots. And we built a complete civilization, although most people don't know how electricity works. So starting with, we shared the mysteries of fire or tofu or meat preparation and everything that made our big brain possible. But before we could do that, somebody has to care about that. And that is work we also have to share with more or less success. But together we share work and knowledge and all the consequences, and we get everything, at least our brain.
Who shares usually gains, at least knowledge, because that always increases if you share it. From that perspective, it's not surprising that we become social before we become generous. And we also can see that with adults. We see as much pleasure when we share information as money. And we share money easier if it came from working together. And with repetition, we become better. And we are not still finding just excuses. But that still sounds very nice. We understand from a young age how it works. So where's evil coming from? Well, why are social people never in my group, in my work group, or my neighbors? Well, we learned a lot about what cooperation needs. So if there is additional gain, it works better. But if we are working against each other, it becomes more difficult for us humans. Different point. It has to be somewhat equal. We were social because we were afraid that others wouldn't play with us. But if one of us is richer and one has all the resources, then we are much less generous suddenly. And this creates problems on the other side, because like all the social species, we have a clear feeling when someone else has more than us. Envy and jealousy are very social feelings as well. Social does not mean nice. So one of the most basic needs is trust. And that's one of the bases of our society. At the beginning of all cooperation, there is a jump of faith, or in German, a jump into the cold water that we have to just do. And there's always the danger that others will leave us hanging. Hopefully, more often than not, it's working. Well, luckily, more often than not, it's working. And general applause here. The Homo economicus will fail at that step. They don't believe that the child above will give something back. They can't trust. And it's funny that we built our financial system based on a principle that doesn't manage cooperation, but still sitting in a tree. And so that what we really need is not getting enough money. And why bacteria are sharing information for free and we are hiding it behind paywalls. Also because we always see sharing as having less. So we have a lot of social capabilities on all the levels, and we could cooperate much better than we are, but we are also our own worst enemy. And that's also valid for our planet, or all our tries to solve the issues with the planet. And that saving the environment is also something we can't do alone, and we are hopefully getting a lot back. So we have the same issues. It has to be equalized. It's very difficult if some buy ecologically safe things and others just don't give a shit. And yeah, we have to have a gain. But some experts just have to calculate what the Amazon or bees are worth, how much money we could save by saving the environment, or what new energy sources could bring, even if climate weren't in danger. And of course, basic human needs are not part of those financial models. So that common resources or some outputs are not in there. And that can lead to weird calculations. If, for example, the majority of investors are thinking that temperatures will rise 2 to 3 degrees, we are wondering, do they know what that means? And of course, what about trust? And we always think we are doing a lot, but others are just pretending. A bit like thinking too much of yourself, but that's human. We see it in the internet, like, where are the 41% of the CDU coming from if only 68% of people are voting? Or why is there a zero birthday cake? Nobody's turning 0, you idiot. Or ourselves, when we say something, Croatia is that secret place this year. And of course, we read it and just assume others didn't see it. They just go to some small village or something. And of course, most people think just nobody, a minority, believes in climate change. Or we say, well, Germany themselves can't do anything, but Germany isn't really doing much. And that's stupid, because we already know, well, we don't like to cooperate when we think others aren't really participating. So back to our mental mistakes. Egocentricity bias, for example, where we always think our perspective is universal because others have the same as we. For example, in climate change, it can't get warmer because there was snow. There is sunk cost fallacy, where we stick to things just because we already invested a lot of time and money. Doesn't matter if it's a good idea or not. The status quo bias, where we already discussed changes much more than the state we are already in, or the shifting baseline syndrome, where we accept every new thing as normal and can't recognize a decline anymore. Temporal discounting, where we don't recognize the future anymore and start working with fast fixes. Or we make decisions that the future generations will suffer from. And anchorship confirmation bias, we like things that are already promoting our views. And the idea that new energies are just dangerous or too expensive, just because maybe it was right once, but times have changed. And we might not have recognized that, where setting up new energy sources has gotten much faster. And of course there's interpolation error. We're not very good at anticipating changes and think everything will just continue. But there is also a negativity bias. So if something is new, we see it as negative automatically. But that's a problem, because it's much easier to talk about problems if you have some idea about how they might be fixed. Everything else is just overwhelming, and that can disorient us. We are calling that learned helplessness, when we are stressed all the time and we can't change anything. And then after that we stop changing it after some time. For example, an elephant that was bound to a plastic chair, but it's also working with a dog and a glass door. So stress leads to us overlooking obvious solutions. And sometimes it doesn't make us more social. Instead, we are just hiding behind optimism bias because it will not hit us. Bad things will not hit us. And someone else will just suck the CO2 out of the air, even if we know it's not a solution. And that brings us to the last big bias, groupthink. We know we are social beings, so we orient not what would be easiest or best, but what is accepted socially. Though at least this interpreter wonders how that is easier. That can lead, in groups at least, to increases and radicalization, or that random weird behavior just spreads. It doesn't matter if it's a good idea or not. The good news and the take-home message is we are able to learn. Things can change. Something that was normal years ago can be very weird now. It's also called the Sisyphus effect, also about gender maybe, because we are turning and turning and turning, but at some point the stone starts rolling and things roll automatically, and then you are better prepared for the situation. There are theories that we might be that far with climate as well.
We can only solve our problems if we see that they are social problems, because humanity stands and falls together. Thank you very much. So I'm sorry, I forgot one detail. I really have to pull that from my pocket, but it's important. All right. Yes, well, that woman is really cool, right? I just clean up a bit. This is the book that we have written. That's the end of the advertisement. I really liked it with you yesterday, so you really have deserved a second date, right? And I really want to make a slam for solutions to the climate crisis, and to not solutions and to the climate crisis. And here's a trigger warning now. After 7 or 8 minutes, I will show pictures of natural disasters, of consequences of natural disasters for people. There are drastic pictures, fires, inferno, and so on. And who really doesn't want to leave the hall because he wants to see the rest. If the fire comes, please close your eyes, and your neighbor will tap you on the shoulder if it's over. Is that cool?
Okay.
All right. Then where's my little sheet? My little cheat sheet. Okay. Here I am. I am a geological scientist, and you can really study that here in Hamburg. A little bit of advertising. And this is not a solution. It's about how the mineral olivine dissolves and takes CO2 from the atmosphere, and why the solution of olivine is not the solution to the climate crisis. But let's start at the beginning with the nice part, the geology. Olivine is created in the Earth's mantle, and volcanoes bring it to the top, and it dissolves in rain or with salt water. And olivine is a silicate mineral there's a silicon atom and 4 oxygen atoms. They create this tetrahedron, and it becomes green from the magnesium, and it also give it the name, the color green. And I talk about chemistry, and I really wanted an intimate detail from your childhood, who, like I had a 5 bad grade in chemistry at school. Yeah, okay, there were a few of us who still did it, and because I really do it professionally now, I really have to think about how to understand chemistry better. And I found a picture that we all know from our from our everyday life. It's like changing your partners. And the molecules are really the couples or communities, and if they meet each other, it can happen that these potential partners are really so attractive that really it's hard to make a decision between one or the other and really change back and forth. And I really have the feeling that it happens here, because after 3 or 4 years, as finally there's a Congress now after the pandemic, and if you really imagine the following. It's the last day of the Congress, and there's a big party, and the olivine enters stage and it encounters 4 molecules of water and 4 molecules of CO2, and there's a lot of joke. And after a while, shit happens, and magnesium is suddenly single. Why? Because last time you heard about hydrogen a lot, it's really sexy, and the silicate really starts an affair with it. And water and carbon dioxide, they really know each other from pre-pandemic times, and they really combine and see what has changed in the meantime. So that's an old love, really, and for a while that goes quite well. And you know from the times where you could party a lot more, then there's this one moment. And you really can't get rid of that song. And carbon and oxygen. No, sorry, magnesium asks carbon and oxygen, don't you want to live with me forever? And they are so excited that they create a mineral, and that's called magnesit. And that's a love for thousands of years. There's silicon and the oxygen. They really say, it really didn't work out, and we really try a monogamous partnership, and they create a couple, and water and carbon dioxide. They go to the red light district and see what happens. You don't really have to memorize all this. It's really very simple. And on the Congress, 4 carbon dioxide came to the Congress and only 2 went home. So what happened? So it's very simple. We have this olivine, this dissolved, and later, at the end of the chemical reaction, there was magnesite, and there is the carbon, and is there bound for millions of years in this geological cycle. So the more olivine I have, the more CO2 of the climate gas I can bind, and that solves the main reason of the climate crisis. So we are done, and we can all go home. Wonderful. Everything's done. So I still have 7 minutes left, so that is not really easy, because if I have one little grain of olivine with a diameter of 1 millimeter, it takes 2,300 years until it is dissolved completely, and we really don't have that much time. It goes a bit faster if I have a high temperature and a low pH and a very reactive surface, because in time a silicate crust is created and stops the reaction. And normally at the university we make experiments and we put olivine into a mug and we stir it. And the problem is then all olivines move in the same direction. So the silicate crust is created and the chemical reaction is decelerated. And I'm not really doing research at the moment about this, but I did. But what happens if this little granules collide? So I break up the silicate crust. So we need loud music and more bodily contact. So we really need a mosh pit. And there's a band recommendation, Shit Show from Hamburg. And I made this kind of mosh pit here. It really looks quite unspectacular. It's 4 kilograms olivine sand, and they are mixed up with water. And the the granules rubbed at each other, and I could really dissolve it much faster and could bind CO2, and I could really bind a ton of CO2 in just 2,280 years, and I had to buy electricity for 500,000 euros, and then I could bind a ton of CO2.
And in science, it's really easy. We just say, well, it works, but it doesn't scale. And that's not too bad, because everywhere on Earth where there's olivine on the beach, like here on Hawaii or Iceland, that the waves are washing the olivine day and night, dissolving it, and 3% of all our CO2 emissions are pulled out of the air each year and brought back into a geological circuit. And that happens just like that, and it's for free. Yeah. Now, 3% emissions is not that much. We want more than that. So I take some olivine and put it on the beach, and then it's geoengineering, and it's not allowed anymore. So the name isn't sexy, so we renamed it. It's climate engineering. That's not as bad. And negative emissions sounds even better. But it's still expensive. The technologies are still unproven. So we have to wonder, do we need that? And to answer that question, do we really need that shit? I'll take you to a small tour through the climate sciences. Jean-Baptiste Joseph Fourier, in 1824, he found that Earth was much warmer than it should be. He found the climate house effect. And then Eunice Newton-Foot proved it, and a guy took the credit. Then the next one proved or calculated how warm it becomes when we double the CO2. And people thought, well, that's good, because it's more food, right? Let's double it. Then the next one, in 1930, found that Earth really gets warmer because of industrialization, and he got a lot of feedback. Good feedback, positive. And then others, this one, he plotted it and put it on a graph, and he could prove that it's us causing it. Then in the 60s, they claimed that they could melt 7 million tons of glaciers. Today we are much higher. And then they calculated that limits of growth, and we cannot grow forever. And ExxonMobil already calculated how bad it would be nowadays. Then there were conferences, a lot of conferences, and the Paris Agreement. And then nothing came of it. We are still in deep shit. Yeah. And the shit is getting deeper, because the question is still, how expensive is it allowed to be? It's difficult to calculate that, but I can tell you what no climate protection is costing us. Water is getting scarcer, heat waves are getting hotter, the storms are getting stronger, and flooding is becoming more and more. And it can be today that one of the water barriers will break. One apparently already did. And then Greece, Hong Kong, Brazil, a lot of countries. So the list is endless. And don't forget all the thousands of dead in Libya. No climate protection costs us everything, our things, our lives, our health. And we can't just plant trees because it's burning all the time. And it's burning, 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 and it's burning. That is what follows from very small 1.5 degrees heat increase. And most here in this hall will probably see double that. So natural disasters that we cannot handle today, it will also increase much more. Panic is not helping us, though. We learned that today in this session in room Z. Don't know what it was called. So we have to think, how do we attack this? And that's why I'm happy to be here today, because I think that the community here can do incredible things.
So you will be part of that solution. So what can we do? We are in deep shit, and we only have this one option, and that is twofold. The first is we reduce our emissions by 90%. No contradiction. We cannot afford anything else. So everyone has to work together, politics, industry, and all individual people also. And because we are part of the action, we are part of those who write history. But because that is not enough, because we will always have emissions that we can't get rid of, we need negative emissions, olivine, or vacuum cleaners, or plant coal, but we really cannot rely on them because those technologies are far away before they can be used globally, and they all have disadvantages and they all cost money. So the solution of olivine doesn't solve the climate. You will solve the climate crisis, because without you 90%, my olivine research is irrelevant. The politics ignored us for 200 years, and I beg you, don't do that as well. Help me, help us all, and with the climate change and climate reversal and everything that we need for it. Thank you. Vielen Dank, Franka und Elena. We have 3 minutes for questions. There are 4 microphones in the hall. Please line up at the microphones, and we do the Q&A. Are there questions from the internet? No, there's only good things from the internet, but no questions. There's currently no one at the microphones. So you can tell me which meme you most identified with. So we are still here for a while. We will be right here. We will exit quietly by the side. And we have a bag full of books. Oops. Yeah, thank you very much. As I said, in the last 2 days, I learned a lot about what this community can do together, can achieve together. A lot about this Congress is digitalization and sustainability and climate change and climate turnaround, and what people often don't really act on in the right way or do the wrong way here. And I've learned about that, and I really don't know how to say it. I find this community is something very special, unlike many other communities that I know. And if someone can really achieve something, then it's probably you. That was a wonderful final word. Thank you very much, Elena and Franka. Yes, and thank you very much. Also, thank you very much for the